Good morning, everybody. We're really excited to have this online workshop with you all today, and particularly excited that it is on scaling up and sustaining your pyramid work. So here's the agenda, which was in your participant workbook. And basically, we're going to be talking about the concepts and the resources that NCPMI and PMC have on sustainability and scale up together as a large group. And then after a resource or two are going into in some detail in the large group, you will be moved into your small work groups for 30 minutes to talk about those resources that were just introduced and those concepts. Okay, 30 minutes. After the first small group, you will go immediately into a 10-minute break. We'll come back into the large group, have another resource introduction for about 10 minutes, and then you will go back into your same small work group for 30 minutes to discuss those resources. Come back into the large group, have another resource introduction for about 10 minutes. And this is the one where we're going to talk about that sustainability and scale up plan worksheet that we have just created to help guide your state leadership team develop a sustainability and scale up plan for about 10 minutes. Again, then you're going to be broken into the small work group made up by your state colleagues so that you as a state group can look at that worksheet and start planning your next steps. Again, 30 minutes. So as you can see, while we're together for 3 hours, an hour and a half of that, you're in work groups. Then we'll come back to the large group for 10 minutes, final thoughts and next steps. So that's our agenda for today. The objectives for today, there are two. The overall objective for this workshop and a lot of PMC and NCPMI sustainability and scale up work for the next many months is around supporting the development in your state with your state leadership team, a written sustainability and scale up plan for statewide implementation of the pyramid model. A plan that addresses all four of the essential structures: the state leadership team, the professional development network of program implementation coaches, implementation and demonstration sites and communities, and data and evaluation. So a written sustainability and scale up plan addressing all four essential structures. Our second objective specific for today is to support you in taking everything we talk about today, including all the resources that are in your participant workbook and the PowerPoints, the tools, the concepts, supporting you in transferring all of that to your state leadership team. So it's almost like a train the trainer. So we're going to, hopefully our goal is when we end today, you will feel as a group from your state leadership team prepared to take this to your full state leadership team and launch the writing of your scale up and sustainability plan. So those are our objectives for today. So like Rob said, what are our expectations for today? Are we going to cook today? Are we going to cook up a plan? Are we going to cook up a plan and eat a full meal? No. We're going to have recipes and tools and our kitchen utensils. And then we're taking it to the state leadership team to cook up that plan together. Because one thing we know is all your work at your state leadership team needs to be collaboratively done and co-created. So hopefully you're going to leave today feeling like you've got some recipes and some tools, and you're taking all of that to your state leadership team to do the cooking. That's our expectation for today. Okay, let's talk about those tools. These are the foundational tools. We're not going to spend a lot of time on these because these hopefully have been the foundation of your implementation work, and it carries over to your sustainability and scale-up work. So the first concept that runs through everything in the pyramid model and everything that NCPMI and PMC does is implementation science. We also have a concept that runs through everything we do about the four essential structures. We build in considerations and commitments to equity throughout everything we do. Everything we do, we have a goal of high fidelity implementation. And in reaching all of those goals and things, we know that our interactions with our teams and in our meetings are key to achieving all of those goals. Because as Fullen says, you can't mandate what matters. And for any of us who've been around for any length of time, we have found, much to our chagrin, that as much as we want to tell people what to do, it doesn't work. So it's got to be co-created. So that's a theme we're going to have throughout today as well. Okay, the resources, the key resources we have on implementation science embedded in our pyramid model work are these two resources right here. The roadmap to statewide implementation of the pyramid model. So the roadmap, I hope you have it copied out. I hope your state leadership team refers to it all the time because it's literally your roadmap. It is by the four essential structures and by the implementation stages within those four essential structures, including sustainability and scale up. The other resource that guides our implementation work through the application of implementation science is the statewide implementation guide that was developed by ECTA and NCPMI and is on both of our websites. So these two resources are on the NCPMI website, the statewide implementation page, and these two are front and center on that page. The four essential structures. Everything we do, we talk about doing it, knowing that in our implementation and scale up, these are the essential structures that have to be in place in order to ensure statewide high fidelity implementation of the pyramid model. The first essential structure is the state leadership team. The second essential structure is the professional development network of your program implementation coaches. Now, we've called this group of people a variety of things over the years: master cadre, external coaches. We have now put it on paper that it is program implementation coaches. Program implementation, because that's who they're working with, the program. That is different from practitioner coaches who work with the practitioners. So your program implementation coaches, that is an essential structure. All your sites, your implementation sites, your implementation programs, your implementation communities, and your demonstration sites. And then the data and evaluation procedures that run throughout all of these essential structures. And as you can see, we see it as a puzzle. You can't have 3, you can't have 2, and you can't have 1 to achieve our goals. You must have all 4 essential structures. And we must have our eye on equity at all times throughout all of those structures. And it's equity in access and outcomes. So we have to be gathering data on both of those things. So do we have equitable access to our pyramid model services? And do we have equitable outcomes? And an example I want to bring up, I mean, there are a million examples of what this looks like in our pyramid work. Here's one I really want to highlight today in our work around sustainability and scale up. We are starting to recommend not using the concept and the language of readiness when you're recruiting new sites, new communities, new programs. Rather, think of it as capacity building, and it's on a continuum. So some states are looking at this process and using the hexagon tool. So any program that or community that says they're slightly interested in the pyramid model, rather than saying they're ready or not, go through a process where you see, well, what might position them to be successful? Maybe they're already positioned. You have criteria. They're already positioned to be successful, so you recruit them as an implementation site. Perhaps they need some capacity building in order to be set for success. And using a tool like the hexagon tool or some other process will show you what areas they need to build some capacity in order to be successful, and you provide that support, and that's an important third point. So your program implementation coaches now, if you think of it this way as capacity building, are working with more than the programs that are implementing the pyramid model. You must have program implementation coach resources available to build the capacity of future programs. Okay, so it's capacity building. It isn't just picking the low-hanging fruit. So that is an example of thinking about equity in a scale-up paradigm. We have a tool also on the statewide implementation page that assists state leadership teams in considering the data they need for every essential structure to see if, or to see how close the state is in equitable access and equitable outcomes. So it's the state leadership team equity inventory. It is by the 4 essential structures, and it's for the state leadership team to be looking at equity across all 4 essential structures. Now let's talk about fidelity. In our work, we talk about fidelity to mean the degree to which specified procedures, innovations, or practices are implemented as intended by the developers and achieve the expected results or benefits. Fidelity implies strict and continuing faithfulness to the original innovation or practice. So think about that's a mouthful. That means we have a way of measuring fidelity, and we use that measurement to make sure we continuing faithfulness, to make sure that we continue to reach fidelity over time, and we maintain it. And we don't talk about sustainability and scale up without talking about fidelity. And why is that? Would we want to sustain anything that is not being implemented as intended, that is not giving us the promised outcomes of the pyramid model? Would we want to sustain that? No. Would we want to expand it and scale it up? No. We want to sustain and scale up pyramid model practices and implementation that is being implemented as intended and giving us the outcomes that are promised. Therefore, we don't scale up and sustain without examining fidelity data all the time. Years out, we will be collecting fidelity data with our early adopters. We need to make sure they're still at fidelity. We need to make sure anything we're scaling up at the local level is at fidelity. Okay? We don't talk about sustainability and scale up without talking about fidelity. We are so fortunate as a field, a pyramid model field, to have fidelity measures. I want you to think, how many interventions do you know that has a fidelity measure? And we not only have intervention fidelity measures, i.e., measures of how well we're implementing the practices, we have implementation fidelity measures, i.e., how well we're implementing the whole structure of pyramid model, the coaching, the in-service training, the professional development practices. And we measure those. We measure the intervention fidelity by our old favorites, the teapot, the tippy toes, the fippy. We also measure our implementation fidelity through all of our BOQs. That tells us, are we implementing with fidelity? So we're very fortunate. And that's one of the selling points we need to explain to people. There's all kinds of programs out there selling themselves, but do they have fidelity measures? Almost to the last one, the answer is no. So now I want us to move into our concepts and resources specific to sustaining and scaling high fidelity pyramid model practices. I'm going to check my time. We're pretty good. There are two resources here that I hope you have become familiar with in the last week or so, but you will take these resources to your state leadership team and help guide your sustainability and scale up with these resources. And again, they're on the NCPMI website, on the state implementation page, and you have links to all of these in your participant workbook as well. These are your foundational informational pieces about how we see sustainability and scale up for the pyramid model, and a way, and we've put the information together for you. So the first, I'm going to try my little laser pointer. This resource brief right here is a compilation of everything NCPMI and PMC has on sustainability and scale up of the pyramid model, as well as a lot of other resources from other websites. So it's a compilation of resources to learn about sustainability, to grasp the concepts of scale up, and it has detailed information. So while it says it's a resource brief, I'll be honest, It's about 6 pages long. But anyway, it has sections on the kinds of leadership implementation science talks about necessary for high fidelity implementation, sustainability, and scale up. So it has a whole section on leadership. There's a whole section on fidelity and a whole section on equity. So this resource brief should be in quotes, is available to you and your state leadership team. This resource here is the sequence of events related to scaling and expanding the pyramid model. It takes a step-by-step approach, and we're going to go into the weeds a little bit on it, and proposes that if we look at scale up from this point of view, that there are 3 phases, and we're going to go into that in just a minute. So let's talk about sustainability first, and then we're going to talk about scale up. Sustainability. The goal of sustainability, you might think of as reaching a depth of change that the pyramid model simply is what we do. It's second nature. It's what we do. It's embedded in everything we do. It's what we think about. It's what we do. And that can be done at the program level, the family level, the community level, and the state level. It's what we do. It's so ingrained in the mission, the values, the work, and the infrastructures. So budgets, systems, policies, that we know and we accept what is needed and expected to maintain high fidelity implementation, to maintain it over time. Maintaining high fidelity implementation at the state, community, program level requires constant monitoring of fidelity. Constant. So your program implementation coaches, your program leadership teams, your community leadership teams, everybody's looking at the fidelity data of your earliest implementers as well as your newest implementers. Policies and budgets that sustain pyramid model implementation over many years. Think about it. Some people, some states right now are existing on foundation money, on raising funds every year. That is not a sustainability budget. A sustainability budget means consistent and reliable funding over time. Succession planning for leaders. How many of us have seen wonderful programs, community efforts, and state efforts go by the wayside because the leadership changed? We need to foresee that and plan that every leader, whether they are at the program level, the community level, and the state leadership team level, we foresee that people will leave, and we're going to make sure that whomever takes their place is committed to the work. There are at least a couple ways of looking at sustainability. Financial sustainability, which I just mentioned, it's got to be adequate and sustainable funding streams. And programmatic sustainability. The ability through policies and funding for durable infrastructure, including your written sustainability plan, to continue to provide timely and effective training, data-driven decisions, ensuring all policies and procedures in all the sectors and agencies support pyramid model implementation. And all of that rests on the continued buy-in by leaders, administrators, staff, and families. So I want to talk about something that's seldom talked about, and that is succession planning. I have seen with my own eyes, high functioning, high fidelity demonstration programs that were in existence for several years. We had federal people going by and visiting them to see what a high fidelity program looked like. And then the change in the director completely ended the pyramid model work. We can't have that happen. It's too much investment. So succession planning, we're going to foresee that people are going to leave, whether it's the program director or it's your state leadership team members. They're going to leave. What are our plans to make sure that when the next person comes in, they are committed to the pyramid model? That is succession planning. So we plan on ongoing support and resources to the programs. We help programs have succession plans. We support planning for turnover. And it's not just staff. We talk about staff turnover all the time. Let's talk about leadership turnover. Okay. And at the state leadership team, we're going to ensure that every member that comes on that team, they're not there just because the job description that they just moved into says they go to this meeting once a month. They're there because they are as excited to be there to implement the pyramid model as your members were the first time you got together. How do you do that? Well, there are lots of strategies to put into place. So you need a succession plan. At the program level, for private programs, this means boards of directors. Do they know about the pyramid model? They're going to hire the next director. Do they want to be looking for somebody that knows the pyramid model and knows how to implement it? Board members, superintendents, early childhood coordinators at the district level, funders, everybody who's going to make key decisions about leadership needs to be sold on the pyramid model. Innovation. So, oftentimes we get asked, okay, well, does fidelity mean we're just doing cookie cutter, cookie cutter, cookie cutter? No. What it does mean is there can be some innovation, there can be some adaptations, as long as those innovations and adaptations give us the outcomes that we're looking for with the pyramid model. So you have to take data. And if after implementing an innovation or an adaptation, your data, your child outcome data, your program outcome data change not for the better, then you have to go back. Okay? Data, data, data. Everything tells us we've got to have data. Okay, those are some concepts for sustainability. I want to talk about scale up now. So I would guess that your pyramid model vision statement says or alludes to all children and families, all communities. Bet it does. Everyone I've ever seen did. That's a scale up plan, right? How are you going to meet your mission statement about all children, all families without a scale up plan? Okay. Got to have scale up plans because you're talking about everybody, right? So scale up, we talk about scale up when we talk about state and community level work that means reaching more children and families. We want all children to get to have this opportunity, right? At the state level, scale up activities focus on statewide initiatives. We plan for the infrastructure needs, the budgets, the policies, and across all of our agencies, all of our sectors. And scale up happens while we're maintaining support to the existing communities and programs. We don't walk away. We don't say, okay, y'all are up and running. You actually met fidelity. We'll see you later. We don't do that because we know about drift. We know that with turnover, with just human nature, we'll have fidelity drift. So we will maintain support. So if you have 5 program implementation coaches today, that is not the number you'll have when you start scaling up. You will have more. We're going to go into that in a minute. At the community level, it means bringing on more implementation programs while maintaining support to sustain fidelity and prevent drift. We also use the term expansion. They can be interchangeable. You all decide how you want to use them. I use scale up to talk about increasing programs and communities. I tend to use expansion when I think about increasing numbers of classrooms within a program, increasing the number of families within an EI program. Okay, so I think of expansion more as horizontal and scale up as vertical. But a lot of people use them interchangeably. The key is whether it's expansion or scale up, you're going to maintain support to the existing programs while you scale or expand. Okay. Scale up basically, it's a fancy word for we want to serve more children and families and communities. Okay, that's all it is. And we're going to do that systematically while we are thinking about succession planning with our current programs, our current teams. We're thinking about and budgeting for more program implementation coaches. We're writing agency and state policies to ensure the funding and supports for the scale up to all children and families. We're going to think about the data needs and the data system needs so that we can make sure we're sustaining fidelity with all of our programs, the earliest implementers and our newest implementers. We're going to think about what it takes to bring on more communities. And we're going to think about all of this and we're going to put it in a written sustainability and scale up plan. So scale up can be seen in 3 phases. Well, this is what scale up looks like. Thank you, Minnesota. Statewide, this is the number of programs over 14 years that Minnesota has brought on. The gold being the programs in their 3rd year or more. The red in their 2nd year, the blue in their 1st year. So they have grown a few new programs every year while maintaining the support and the data collection from all of their programs starting in the 2nd year. So that's a nice picture of what scale up looks like. Okay, the sequence of events resource. I want to stop here and talk about a paradigm shift for some, for many of us. This resource talks about scaling up communities and at the community level. Why is that? We've always talked about bringing on programs, supporting programs. We have program implementation coaches. I'll be honest with you, when we started thinking seriously and got in the weeds about scale up, it was like an aha moment. It was like, wait a minute. If we're going to scale to hundreds of programs, and that's the goal, The state leadership team can't deal with that unit. The state leadership team's going to need a different unit of analysis and work and implementation, and that's the community. So the community leadership team becomes an intermediary between all these hundreds of programs and the state leadership team, along with their partner, the program implementation coach. So this resource, and you'll start seeing more of this from as we all start really getting into the weeds on Scale Up. This resource refers to scaling up community leadership teams and the community leadership teams scaling up programs. Okay? Scaling up community, scaling up. Okay, and all of this can be seen in 3 phases. Phase 1 is where pretty much everybody has been already, and that is when the state leadership team selects either their first programs or their first communities. But it's your first cohort, okay? State leadership team brings on their first cohort. Yay, we're doing implementation, we're collecting data, we're getting all of our infrastructures in place. And then phase 2, and we're not talking years here, it could be 1 year, it could be 5 years. The next phase, the state leadership team brings on their second cohort. And it could be, in this case, communities. The first phase now is moving along. It's like a machine, it's moving along, it's got program implementation coach, it's collecting data. The whole first cohort's collecting data, sending data up through the program implementation coach. They are reaching fidelity. And the community leadership team is ready to start thinking about selecting their second cohort of programs, while the state is bringing on a second cohort of communities. Do you see where I'm going with this? It gets big really fast, which is our goal. And we're collecting data all along, and we're maintaining program implementation coach support all along to all of them. Of course, the support gets less intense with your programs that have reached fidelity, but they always have access to program implementation coaching. Because they're going to go through turnover. They're going to have a different program leadership team at some point. So we're going to continue to support them. Phase 3, again, we're not talking to years here. It's a phase. State leadership team brings on a third cohort of communities. The community leadership teams in the first cohort and the second cohort are expanding and scaling to more programs in their community. And in the phase 3, we've got more communities coming on, and they are selecting more programs. It's huge, but it is, you can make it a systematic process, and that's what we have to do. So here's the sequence of events. State leadership team brings on the first cohort, and in this case, community leadership teams. The community leadership teams in that first cohort selects programs, initiates the work to reach fidelity. The program implementation coach is assigned. The state leadership team then in the next phase selects a second cohort of communities, assigns a program implementation coach. Those programs work towards fidelity, and the community leadership teams in the first cohort select a second cohort of programs. State leadership team in the third phase brings on a third cohort, and the community leadership teams in all of the cohorts are bringing on more programs with the assistance of program implementation coaches. Okay. It's very dynamic, as you can see. And while we're doing all of that, we are focusing on fidelity, fidelity, fidelity. We're collecting data. We're providing intensive support when there's fidelity drift. We're sustaining fidelity through program implementation, coach support to your very earliest adopters, to your brand new adopters. Data, 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 feedback, and communication. What are the budget implications to all of this? Okay. Think about an ongoing state leadership team budget across agencies. It can stay pretty static with, small increments. You've got your staffing for the state leadership team and your program implementation coaches. You've got your data systems, public awareness, your website, your annual report. But your increased budget is primarily your increases in program implementation coaches. That's what you've got to be planning for. That is what you'll see on the sustainability and scale up plan worksheet. We've really focused on thinking about how many coaches you need to bring on per year to meet your scale up needs and what's the cost of that. That's your big budget cost and all your increased data needs. Okay, so those are the increased budget needs. Okay. Time to roll your sleeves up. We're going to go into your first work group, and they really are work groups. Your facilitators are all excited and ready, and you have 30 minutes. So you're going to be focused on sustainability and scale up, okay? You're focused on those two resources particularly, and particularly, I think you probably want to have some discussion around your scale up process. So you will be in with the same group of people, including the facilitator, this small group, and the next small group. You have 30 minutes. At the end of the 30-minute work group, you'll have a 10-minute break. And then you will automatically come back to the large group. Okay, I know it's a lot, but your facilitators are ready, and we will see you in about 40 minutes. Okay, so moving on. We talked about sustainability and scale up, and we talked about the need to be systematic about it. And we're going to, in the next bit, talk about one of the things that I think we forget about, or we don't even think about. And that is the health of your state leadership team, which also it carries quite a bit of weight when we're thinking about succession planning. Your state leadership team, I will venture to say, will determine whether or not your pyramid model sustains over a really long time. And therefore, it's important for us to really look at our state leadership team and how it's functioning. So I've worked with teams at the local and state level for decades. And I believe strongly that we need to make sure our teams are healthy and they are productive and they're passionate. And there are several things that I've learned over time, and some of which actually has some literature behind it. And that is, teaming is collaboration. And collaboration is a process. It's an ongoing process. It's not an event. It's not a meeting. Collaboration and teaming does require meetings where we share ideas and we make decisions together, but it's not the meeting. Collaboration needs trust and respect, true shared decision-making. the decision, your idea may not be the decision that is chosen. And that is foundational. And we could easily just say, of course. But when the rubber meets the road, and we're all pretty passionate people, or we could probably be doing something else that's easier, we tend to be passionate about our opinions and our thoughts and our ideas. And we often think that our idea is a good one. But true collaboration means, first of all, that we get all the ideas out on the table, and there are activities we should be doing in every one of our state leadership team meetings to make sure that's happening. And then all the ideas are equally considered. And oftentimes what is decided is an amalgam of ideas. But to be part of a true collaborative team, you really have to ask yourself in your heart, if the decision is not my idea, not my good idea, do I really want to be part of this team? And if the answer is no, that's fine. Don't be part of the team. But if the answer is yes, and everybody answers that question in their heart, yes, I'm good with a team decision, then you have the foundation of a good collaborative team. And with those shared decisions, you build ownership. And we've talked a lot today about the importance of ownership in order to sustain this work and to scale it. So you need buy-in. We've talked a lot about that, and ownership. And there are ways to build a feeling of ownership, or the real ownership, and ways of building buy-in. And there are lots of strategies, and there's lots of stuff on the internet and in the literature. But we're going to talk about some that we know that work. Because as Fullen says, we can't mandate what matters. We have got to co-create this thing, and we've got to continue to co-create it for years on years. And we need to be in our succession planning, bringing on state leadership team members that have this ownership and this commitment. And in order to do all that, we have got to pay attention to what we're doing in our meetings. We've got to make our pyramid model meetings that people actually want to come to. That we want our pyramid model meetings to be so productive and build so much ownership that people wouldn't even think about not coming unless they're sick. So there are ways of doing that. So we want to talk about progress of state leadership teams and the process of state leadership teams. Oh, I think one of the marvelous things that we have are our BOQs. And our BOQs help us measure our progress at all of our levels, our program levels, early intervention levels, community levels, state levels. We have a BOQ, and they help guide us, and they help mark our progress. And here's a picture from Wisconsin of their BOQ over many, many years. And they send me their annual BOQ results. Every year they have, every year. It's something I look forward to. I think Lisa gets them too. And they celebrate it. They celebrate their annual BOQ. And as you can see, every year has been a little different. And it depends on the context of what's going on that year and whatever. But the point is, over time, there's progress, and they're measuring their progress. And they can couch each one of these years in the context of that year. So our BOQ really gives us a wonderful picture over time. Talk about sustainability over time of our progress of our state leadership team. We also want to measure the process of our state leadership team. And this handout is on both the ECTA website and the PMI or NCPMI website. And we've tried to boil down everything we've learned about an effective, productive, shared ownership team to as few points as we can. And they're all in this handout. And it's all, if you look at this handout and the state leadership checklist through the lens of relationship building, I think you will see that every recommendation we make is all about building relationship, every recommendation. So this is a set of guidelines around forming your team, conducting your team meetings, and maintaining your team. The state leadership team checklist is actually a checklist of sustainability features. We strongly believe that if your state leadership team functions highly on this list of behaviors, it will lead toward sustainability. Why? Because every item on here is about relationship. Every item on here is about buy-in and commitment. And those are your keys, right? If you have people who want to come to a meeting, they're going to want to come because they have ownership, they have commitment, and they have relationships. And that's what every one of these items on here focuses on. So I want to try to make up a couple of our minutes. And I think that you all reviewed these materials prior to today. In our second small group, we have, again, 30 minutes. You're going to be with the same group. So everybody sort of knows each other now. And the same facilitator. We have 30 minutes. The main focus is the state leadership team checklist. So that's what we're going to focus on. We have 30 minutes and we'll be brought back to the large group. Okay, so let's talk about writing a sustainability and scale-up plan. It is written. The worksheet that we've developed and sent to you that we'll look at in the next breakout group suggests that you start out writing your mission and vision statement. And make sure that your mission, that the state leadership team is still committed to that mission and vision. If not, you want to start there and revise to what the team wants. Then once you have a final written vision and mission statement, you're ready to write your sustainability and scale-up plan. It needs to be collaboratively developed. Remember, you all are taking the recipes and the tools and the utensils to the state leadership team who's going to cook this up. Please, please, please think out of the box. Remember and tell your state leadership team members you're going to consider can't is a 4-letter word. Don't is a 4-letter word. Think out of the box, think positively. The only way you will ever have the resources you need to scale up the pyramid model with fidelity is to think you can do it, okay? Is to think we need X amount of money for the first year, the second year, the 5th year, the 8th year. This is how we're going to go about getting it, okay? Nobody expects you to have the money now, right this moment. Nobody expects you to have it next year. That's why on this worksheet, you start with a 3-year plan and then you move to a 5-year plan. All right. Think out of the box. Consider can't a 4-letter word. You know, some people are getting the resources they need. There's no reason why your state leadership team pyramid model group can't get it as well. Okay, so one of your resources is a document on the state implementation guide on the ECTA website and the Pyramid Model Innovations website. It's 3 or 4 pages long. It actually leads you into thinking about how to foresee a budget over time, okay? So it's pretty nitty-gritty suggestions and recommendations for steps. I'm not going to go over here because you can look at this, but what I really want to skip to is get you into your 3rd group, which is your state leadership team group. So you're going to be with your state colleagues. So you'll have 30 minutes to think about what you have heard today, what ideas that it has generated, but most importantly, you're going to be looking at this worksheet. This is the Sustainability and Scale Up Plan worksheet. It is not your plan. It should get you to the point where you can transfer to an action plan. It will walk you through all 4 essential structures. We have offered possible goals and objectives for you to build on. And then you put your 3-year strategies for meeting those goals and objectives and your 5-year strategies. And then that gets transferred into more of an action plan format, okay? So the first 1.5 or 2 pages of this gives you ideas about how to proceed as a team to co-create the sustainability and scale up plan. And then the last few pages are the ones that go by the 4 essential structures. So in this 3rd group, you are going to be with your state leadership team colleagues from your state. The outcomes we're hoping that you will achieve today is the date of your next meeting to talk about taking all of this information, transferring it to your state leadership team. You have your participant workbook, you have the slides, you have all the resources. So you and your colleagues today make your plan for how you're going to transfer all of that to your full state leadership team. Also, jot down a few ideas on your worksheet across all 4 essential structures, 1 essential structure, whatever. Start jotting down some ideas so you get a feel for the worksheet itself. Okay? Now, half the states, because we only have 13 facilitators, so half the states are going to start out on your own. Follow these instructions. They're on the back of your participant workbook, these exact instructions. You want a timekeeper and you want a scribe. So your timekeeper needs to be watching that 30 minutes and making sure you get to all of these outcomes. Your scribe's going to jot down your date of your next meeting, date and plan for the state leadership team, how you're going to move all this information to the full team, and when you're going to start working with your worksheet. Okay, everybody. So we want to quickly wrap up here, talk a little bit about some next steps. I wanted to let you know that at NTI, there will be a similar workshop. So if you all want to come to that workshop, it will cover much of the same information, and you could share where you are in your planning. That'd be fabulous. This workshop will be posted. as we mentioned earlier, PMC is going to do some follow-up around sustainability and scale up. So watch out for that. And as Lisa mentioned, we will be doing, NCPMI will be doing another annual scan. And Victor, do you want to walk us through evaluation?
All right, so thank you very much to all of our panelists and everyone for attending. Your feedback is very important to the work that we do, so please remember to provide your feedback on today's session with our post-webinar survey by typing the web address shown on this slide into your internet browser. You can also scan the QR code too. Your certificate of attendance will appear once you submit the survey. We invite you to visit our website, challengingbehavior.org, to sign up for our upcoming webinars, access recordings, download pyramid model resources, and more.
Thank you, everyone, for participating. We really appreciate it. Let us know how we can continue to support your work to sustain and scale up your pyramid model implementation. Thank you so much.